Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. Less than a month after the most spectacular victory in the Delhi Assembly elections, the Aam Aadmi Party seems to be imploding. Though it was no secret that the fledgling party had people with different opinions and differences ever since it was set up, the present crisis seems to be going out of hand. Two of its stalwarts, Prashant Bhushan and Yogendra Yadav, have become the target of a section of the AAP leadership seen to be acolytes of Arvind Kejriwal. The national executive meeting of the party scheduled for tomorrow is expected to take a decision on their future in the party. The party is plagued with intrigue, suspicions and name-calling. The party, which was seen as a new hope in the Indian political scene, is showing similar tendencies which we are too familiar with. So is the crisis in the Aam Aadmi Party a result of ideological differences, or is it just a personality clash? What will be the impact on the party and how will it emerge from it? We will discuss all this today with Professor Purushottam Agrawal, political analyst and former professor at the JNU, Vinod Sharma, political editor, Hindustan Times, and Venkitesh Ramakrishnan, associate editor, Frontline magazine. Welcome to all of you. Professor Agrawal, is this some kind of a clash of ideas?
Yeah, and I don't think that is exactly ideological. In any case, the differences in perspectives are to be quoted in ideological language. The political ambitions are to be quoted in ideological language. And so far as the personal conflicts are concerned, unfortunately or fortunately in Indian politics, the personality conflicts and ideological differences go hand in hand.
Overlap.
And I think at the moment, so far as I understand it, this is basically the result of differences in the perspective on how to run the party. And there is certainly also an element of the clash of personal ambitions and personal ways of looking at things. I really do not see this to be a real fundamental ideological difference. I do not see that.
You don't think so? No. Vinod?
On the face of it, it's a face-off between the Puritans, the so-called Puritans, whom I used to call maximalists earlier, and
pragmatists.
Pragmatists, you know. It's a clash between Puritans and pragmatists, and it has to it an element of peer competition. When they set out, they were all together, they were all equal, and along the way, Arvind Kejriwal has become the pivot, so to speak, of the party. And there is an approach, difference of approach in the tactics, because there are certain leaders in the Aam Aadmi Party who want the party to expand in immediate terms, maybe not pan-Indian expansion, but expansion in the immediate vicinity of Delhi, which is, first it was Haryana, now that Haryana elections are over, and the Aam Aadmi Party did not participate in those elections, their eyes are now set on the Punjab. You know. Now, there is an element of logic there. My sole worry, Girish, here is that Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, to whom goes the maximum credit of bringing the party to this juncture, he may get sucked in factional politics. He may eventually emerge very badly bruised as a factional leader, while he should actually be the glue that should keep the party together, rather than being a partisan player in the whole business.
Right.
And I think that, rather than expelling people or taking action against them, sending their cases to disciplinary committee, he should make the senior people and the other people sit down and see reason. I mean, I was quite surprised that there is an admiral who is now the internal Lokpal. And he writes a letter and releases to the press. What is he there for? I mean, is this the job of the Lokpal? I mean, he writes a letter and releases to the press.
This part of the transparency.
So all of no, you see, transparency has to be reasonable. You know, nothing in extremes works in politics. Every political party has its sets of differences, has its sets of secrets, which are well kept. Not that those secrets, if they are disclosed, will embarrass them. But for tactical reasons, for strategic reasons, you have to keep certain things under wraps. So this kind of transparency, then they might as well stop wearing clothes. I mean,
no. Just a minute.
Yeah.
I think this idea of internal Lokpal was there from the beginning in Aam Aadmi Party.
Yes, it's been there.
And that was part of their being different. So far as the leaking of that letter is concerned, I really don't know who leaked it.
We don't know who leaked it.
But that idea in itself, I think, cannot be dismissed.
I'm not questioning the idea. You've got me wrong.
I'm
questioning the idea of the Lokpal writing a letter and releasing it to the press.
I don't know who released it. But Lokpal writing a letter is not a bad idea in itself.
Venkatesh, the point raised by Vinod, that Arvind Kejriwal, if he's not careful, and he has very little time left now, tomorrow is the meeting, can he end up looking like a factional leader?
He certainly should not look like a factional leader.
But is it possible that he may end up looking like one?
I think he has already now started looking like a factional leader. Especially the kind of advocacy that's happening in the social media, which the Aam Aadmi Party has very carefully used, and very, very effectively used over the last 1.5 to 2 years. I think the kind of language that is being used by his supporters. In fact, they're exhorting Yogendra Yadav and Prashant Bhushan to leave the party, saying that there is no way that now we can work with Arvind Kejriwal. Of course, Kejriwal had said right at the beginning. You had asked this question about the ideological dimension.
Right.
I think what is exactly happening is that that an organizational issue, an issue of organizational development, and the clashing perspectives on that. That is the basic situation. On that basic situation, now people are imposing ideological dimensions, where no ideological dimensions exist.
So you don't think there is any ideological dimension?
No, there is an ideological dimension, but that is not the primary thing. It is essentially a question of how the party should be taken forward in other parts of India. Of course, they have made a big mark in Delhi, and from what I understand, this is a problem which has been there right after the Lok Sabha elections. In fact,
one of the grouses of Prashant Bhushan, I'm sure Yogendra Yadav may not have articulated it, but Prashant Bhushan articulated it very. He said the problem with Arvind Kejriwal is that he tries to impose his will on everybody. Is that where the problem lies?
I think that's also part of the problem. You can't just wish it away. I think, as Vinod rightly pointed out, over a period of time, Arvind Kejriwal has emerged as the numero uno. The number one person in the
He was supposed to be first among equals.
Yeah, but that's a principle that you talk about him in all political parties. I think the way Modi has emerged in the BJP. I think ultimately the popularity makes a lot of difference to any personality. But then the tragedy is that the Aam Aadmi Party leadership claimed that that they were representing a new kind of politics.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and one feels that that promise is not being fulfilled.
We are now joined in by Anjali Bhardwaj, Secretary of the National Campaign for People's Right to Information. Anjali and her colleagues like Aruna, all of them have worked with Arvind Kejriwal before. So we would like to get a perspective from that point of view. Anjali, what we have been discussing now. You think that, this whole experiment which was seen as something very new in the Indian politics, a lot of hopes being raised by people about this politics, especially now after the Delhi election results, where is it coming apart? Do you think it is coming apart? And if it is, why?
Well, I think if one looks at it in the context of the letters that have been written right now by Prashant Bhushan, by other people, the kinds of issues that are being raised are primarily three. They're talking about transparency in decision-making, about accountability in decision-making, talking about transparency in the funding of the political party, and they're talking about inner party democracy. And I think that these are three very, very important issues which there is a great opportunity right now for AAP to actually address. And if they don't, I believe that they will be losing a great moment, they'll be losing a great opportunity. It is, after all, a political party that has as its founders people who have been closely associated with the right to information movement, with the movement for accountability, anti-corruption. And it's very natural that people outside the party, and especially people inside the party, will have an expectation that when this party comes to power, this party is formed, it will itself adhere to the kind of values and the principles that it has wanted and demanded from the others. And therefore, I think that what we are seeing right now is an internal questioning, is an internal demand for the party leadership, for the party to follow a certain course. And I think it will be extremely important for the party to take heed, to find that space for internal questioning, for assimilating those views and making sure that they adhere themselves to those principles and values. Otherwise, I don't think that it will in any case be able to call itself a party with a difference, a party which is any different from other mainstream political parties with which I think the people of Delhi certainly had a lot of disillusionment.
Absolutely.
And therefore voted Aam Aadmi Party into power with such a thumping majority.
Right. I think you made very important points. I think she's made very important point, Professor Agrawal. This is, three issues which she raised, which she thinks and, which is quite obvious. Decision-making, funding and inter-party, inner-party democracy. I mean, these were the things which we heard from these same people all these days. And this was what was appreciated. Even today, if you go through the social media, the kind of trauma which the Aam Aadmi Party supporters are expressing on the social media is very clear that, but where have they gone wrong? Is it the personality cult which seems to have,
see, the problem,
caused this problem?
We cannot look at Aam Aadmi Party outside the general political culture. For so many years, the Indian politics has been contributing to
we were trying to look at it from a different point of view, because the people in that party now did not belong to any established political culture.
Yeah, you are right. But the point, however, is that when you run a political party in a given political culture, you just cannot be simply different. You have to willy-nilly imbibe some parts of the dominating political culture. And therefore, the basic conflict in Aam Aadmi Party at the moment seems to be those who insist on a certain kind of Puritan approach, and on the other hand, those who call themselves as pragmatists, believing in the politics of welfareism and accusing their opponents of being ultra-left and so on. The point, however, is I think that Aam Aadmi Party has to behave, has to put itself in order, because in Indian politics at least, people judge you on the basis of expectations you create.
Absolutely.
So, Aam Aadmi Party has created a certain level of expectations. They have been very harsh in their criticism of the entire political class. They have been lampooning political class left and right. And now, therefore, the trauma you are talking of on the social media, that trauma actually reflects the high level of expectations which Aam Aadmi Party has itself created.
Right.
Additional point here is, as I told you in the beginning itself, basically, at best, it's a clash of contesting perspectives on tactics. At worst, it's a clash of personal ambitions and personality orientations. There is no point in giving it an ideological color, because I do not think that Aam Aadmi Party has reached a situation where it has to decide about itself that whether it is going to be clearly left of the center or right of the center. At the moment, it's a party of some kind of consensus. According to Yogendra Yadav, who is being presented as ultra-left these days, it's his own description that we are living in post-ideological times.
Right.
So, I think to read an ideological conflict within Aam Aadmi Party is to read too much. Basically, it's an organizational conflict, it's a personality conflict at worst, not an ideological
Venkatesh,
conflict.
if you remember when Aam Aadmi Party was set up, and there was a whole lot of excitement in the media about it and things like that, some of the left ideologues felt that this party will not be able to survive because it has no ideological underpinning. You think that is where a problem lies? You think those leftist ideologues are proving right now because of lack of a cohesive ideology which brings people together and keeps people together?
That is stretching the point too far, actually. See, Aam Aadmi Party does not have defined ideology or policy positions on a lot of major issues in this country, which I have also been pointing out, saying that that they need to get over this major deficiency in their whole structure. But I think they have diluted their own organizational procedures in the run-up to the Delhi elections, which
is what has created the problems in the at least the present crisis seems to have a immediate effect, immediate problem seems to have been the way the candidates were selected, and
No,
which is what both Yogendra Yadav and Prashant Bhushan have.
And I think, there's been a lot of emphasis on realpolitik. I mean, the kind of entries that other people from other parties made into the Aam Aadmi Party, the kind of tactics that some of the candidates used in campaigning, all these were being questioned even by the Lokpal. But for me, this kind of, adherence to realpolitik or kind of an affiliation to realpolitik more than required, at a scale that is more than required, I think that has come very significantly when Kejriwal did not take up any portfolio. Kejriwal refrained to, kind of handle any portfolio directly, but kept himself as an overseeing.
What was that? Was that some protest which you?
No.
Under protest that you were doing it, or is it a tactic?
No. I think he had a sense that this was coming. He had a sense this was coming, and he wanted to tell. And I think you will see. I mean, perhaps what you will see in tomorrow, if not tomorrow, in the days to come, is the elevation of Manish Sisodia as de facto chief minister and Kejriwal retaining the convener's position.
He's virtually, even now he's virtually there. He's a deputy chief minister. So,
so I think, this emphasis on realpolitik and tactics is something that's become very prominent in the Aam Aadmi Party. It has worked in the Delhi elections at the level of the electorate, but I feel that if they are trying to take it to the organization, and if they are trying to kind of, stifle sober voices like Yogendra Yadav, I mean, at least at the public level, I think that will be very detrimental to the Aam Aadmi Party.
Vinod, these two people whom we are talking about mainly, which has created this crisis, I mean, because of which there is this crisis. I won't say created this crisis. Yogendra Yadav and Prashant Bhushan. Do you think that they are too much of purists? Do you think that that this puritanism they also need to temper it a little bit?
You see, I mean, as Professor Agrawal was just now saying, it not depends on the political climate in which you are operating. For instance, you can't grow apples in a desert. You see, you have to go to the higher climes. So I think that there have to be a degree of realism. Now, I just don't understand Mr. Prashant Bhushan. I have tremendous regard for him. He's a man with tremendous integrity. Calling Arvind Kejriwal an autocrat. I mean, what is the temperamental difference between the two, may I ask? I mean, they both are, say, for instance, if they take a position, I mean, they're almost like Morarji Desai, As M.O. Matai described that, somebody asked him that temperamentally, how's Morarji Desai? He says, you put a Gandhi cap at the top of Ashoka pillar and you have Morarji Desai. No, you can't be an Ashoka pillar and do practical politics. Now, if they want the Aam Aadmi Party to be an assembly of Ashoka pillars, it'll crack. An element of flexibility has to be there. And I'm sorry, while it is a fact that Mr. Arvind Kejriwal hasn't kept company, his comrades have changed with the roles that he has had along the years ever since he was an RTI activist, I mean, there were many people who got associated with them and got expended in the process, got used and expended in the process as he progressed further. That is one thing which is held against him. But that is true as much of any political party. May I ask you, can you give me, all kinds of definitions and all kinds of onuses are being placed at the doorsteps of the Aam Aadmi Party and its leadership. And whatever is being expected of him, can you name a single political party in the world which measures up to those high standards? No. What we must be looking for is goodness in relative terms. A lesser evil. A much, much lesser evil. Which the Aam Aadmi Party can be and should be.
Obviously, yes.
May I add to this? See, Puritanism definitely breeds self-righteousness. And this kind of self-righteousness maybe behoves to those who are absolutely outside the system. Maybe
but this self-righteousness is exactly what was accused against Arvind Kejriwal.
Precisely.
No,
he was a maximalist.
You see, and that is what the achievement of Aam Aadmi Party has been, I have been pointing out all through. Since last 1 year, they have reduced a lot of degree.
They have moderated them.
They moderated. They stopped brushing all the political class, the entire political class with the same brush. They stopped talking in quote-unquote anarchist terms. These are the measures of realism which you have to imbibe if you really want to do politics with people.
Okay.
I mean, you are not doing a politics in a Himalayan cave.
Absolutely. Anjali, is it some kind of a... See, you work for an NGO, you all been civil society activists for a long time. You have also worked along with people like Arvind Kejriwal and maybe Prashant Bhushan and even... my question is this is a political party. Have they still not evolved as a political party? Are they still stuck in the NGO, civil society activist mindset?
Well, let me say that
This is not to accuse the civil society activists or trying to bring them down, but politics is different. Civil society activism is different.
Well, let me first start by saying that I agree with Vinod and the other panelists when they say that there's a certain political climate in which Aam Aadmi Party is operating. But I also want to remind them that that is exactly the political climate against which Aam Aadmi Party spoke, and for that reason, the masses came out, supported them and voted them in.
Right.
And I think that what people, I'm not just talking about civil society activists, but I think what the people of Delhi would like to see now, and the reason why in some ways they have voted them in power in such big numbers, is that they want to see if it's actually possible to do politics in a different way. Now, when a party says that they believe in the right to information, they believe in transparency, I do not see how they can not make themselves come under the Right to Information Act. In fact, it wasn't just civil society activists.
No, Anjali, Vinod's problem is that they have been too transparent. The Lokpal gives a report and it gets leaked.
Releases to the press.
Every letter is being leaked. Yogendra Yadav writes a letter, it's being leaked.
But
and
Girish,
then they're accusing each other of leaking it. And,
when people and civil society activists, people in general, were saying that political parties should be under the Right to Information Act, there was full support from the Aam Aadmi Party.
Right.
The Aam Aadmi Party got up and also spoke against the mainstream parties, whether it was Congress, BJP, BSP or any party, when they did not appoint PIOs, when they did not make themselves accountable and transparent. Now, I think it will be expected, and it's not irrational of people within the party and outside, in fact, to expect that they will themselves say that, look, we are appointing a PIO. After all, look at the situation today. Just like the centre, in Delhi, we have an absolute majority. 67 out of 70 seats are with the Aam Aadmi Party. It's virtually an Aam Aadmi Party internal meeting happening in the Delhi Vidhan Sabha. Now if there isn't inner-party democracy, if there isn't space for questioning within the party...
I think that's an important point you made.
I think we are going to be in for trouble. Because
absolutely.
after all, the political party in power decides the policies of the government.
Absolutely.
Do people not have a right to know what the basis of decision-making in a political party is? And then we are talking about an Aam Aadmi Party, which has gone to people making huge promises.
I think you have a very important point there. Vinod, I think
I want to say something.
No, 67 out of 70.
Broadly,
if there is no inter-party democracy, then
on the fundamentals, there is no agreement. There is no disagreement with Anjali. I mean, I agree with the fundamentals that she has enunciated. I'm only saying, look, the Aam Aadmi Party was the embodiment of the cynicism, the popular cynicism that came to stay against the established political parties. So in that limited sense, it was more of a reaction than a political party, which found expression through certain people.
No,
and they turned this party into a political party. Now, it has to acquire certain roots, by way of its thinking, ideology, by way of its policy perspective. They say, look, we are ideology free, we are pro-people. Now, pro-people is too simple. I mean, you subjectively cannot decide what is pro-people and what is the anti-people. But I think that transparency has to be reasonable. It can't be absolute. Nothing is absolute.
Okay.
And RTI, our political parties under RTI, Anjali, you remember, yes, their funding should be transparent. They should answer questions about their funding. They should answer questions about other things. But internal decision-making with regard to setting up candidates, with regard to what ideological line they have, those debates can't be disclosed. If they are disclosed, then they are a party out on a limb vis-a-vis their adversaries.
Okay, yes, Professor Agrawal.
See,
No, one small point which Vinod made. it's a party in the process of evolution. Should we see this as part of that evolutionary process, or should we see it as something which can debilitate the party and make it irrelevant?
No, I think the present crisis is part of the evolution. It's part of experimentation. And another point I would like to make here is that basically it's a kind of dialectics. The seemingly opposites come together and create something new. So far as this transparency is concerned, I would agree with Vinod. In political parties, in any system, in any institution, the transparency cannot be absolute. That is very clear. The idea of having an internal Lokpal is a wonderful idea. But the leakages which have been happening all around regarding Aam Aadmi Party, I don't think it's... You see, particularly in the days of media scrutiny, where much more than the actual can be read between the lines, where some fuel to the fire can be added, I think every leader of Aam Aadmi Party, or for that matter, any political party, has to behave with some responsibility, has to exercise a certain kind of restraint. And settle the differences in party fora,
okay.
Not in public.
Venkatesh, you have been following this party, you've been meeting leaders, talking to them. Do you think that they have the ability in them to overcome this crisis?
I think, if you look at individual potential, I think all of them have the ability to overcome this. There's no doubt about it. They are all people who understand democracy. They understand the democracy principle. In various forums, they have followed it and implemented it. So I think, they have the potential to do it. But what I find, one single difference that I find on these ideological issues, on these organizational perspectives and all that. So when Arvind Kejriwal was asked, during the time of the Lok Sabha elections, on these very important issues, he said, "ये तो शिवजी की बारात है, इसमें सब तरह के लोग होंगे." But then, I think at that time, Arvind Kejriwal was perceived as Shivaji, not one of the Bharat members. But I think that there is a kind of slight downslide in his persona at this point of time, which he needs to overcome.
Arrest.
Vinod, he has very little time to do that, because tomorrow seems to be some kind of a D-day for them.
Yes, I think that, Arvind Kejriwal, I wonder whether he has that timber, that political timber, to emerge as the karta of this family. Because this family needs a karta. The Janata Party disintegrated because nobody was willing to accept anybody as a karta. The same was the problem with the Janata Dal. These were the parties formed with the best of intentions.
Right.
And they have just vanished, and they are nothing today. Mr. Arvind Kejriwal will have to rise above factionalism.
He'll have to become
He'll have to bring people together. And mind you, the others should also bear this in mind. This, Mr. Prashant Bhushan, Mr. Yogendra Yadav, and Mr. Ashutosh and others, etc., etc. Far too many spokesmen for a party are like far too many cooks spoiling the broth.
Okay, very quickly.
Everybody has his own taste.
At the risk of sounding very, very politically incorrect, no system, including a political party, can function without a stated or unstated hierarchy.
Okay, Anjali, very quickly, what will be the impact if this experiment fails, if this party is unable to resolve this crisis?
I think it will be a huge pity. And I don't think that things are hopeless. I think that there is, like I mentioned, a great window of opportunity. They have won the Delhi elections with a huge majority. Here there are the founders, very friendly people who have helped the party grow, who are raising questions. What needs to be done is that those questions need to be introspected upon, they need to be assimilated and responded to. And let me also say that when a party has come to power, questioning the single person, single persona, party high command culture, they will have to keep in mind that some collective responsibility and leadership will have to be cultivated, and people will expect it of them.
Okay, I think on that note we need to end. We'll have to wait and watch how this fledgling party, a party with such great promise, will handle this crisis. We'll wait and watch for that. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue of the big picture same time tomorrow.